So, the title of this live stream, perhaps just let OBCare, Obamacare crash and burn, is an excerpt from today's tweet by Trump this morning. It's currently 8 a.m. or going on 9 a.m. And I really am trying to figure out what to feel about this, because people will say, okay, well, he has a point. The Democrats won't assist the Republicans at all. Like, yeah, but the problem is when it was 2016, 2015, 2014, just so on and so forth, all the way back until back since 2011, after the Republicans gained control of the House, you had this party that wouldn't assist Obama. And, I'm not trying to say two wrongs make a right, because I think one of them has to say at some point, okay, well, we actually care, so let's try to do something differently here. And that's really what is so just impractical to me about this. So, because you guys are upset that Trump became president, we're going to sit here for another, 3 years, and not do anything in relation to his policies or seeing them enacted, because of a grudge over individuals casting their votes in a democracy. And we're going to keep talking about Russia instead of, I don't know, single payer healthcare, free college. And that goes really for both most of the Democrats, except he's not Democrat, Sanders and Warren, out of the liberal politicians, as well as TYT and other news networks. And it's sad because I, again, happen to agree with them on most policy proposals, barring gun control and another issue. But my point that I'm really seeking to convey here is, let's go back in history. After JFK's assassination, and imagine if Dr. King said, you know what, LBJ's not my president. I'm not going to work with him on anything. We're going to oppose him until the 1968 election, which he didn't even live to see, but referring to MLK there, assassinated a couple of months ahead of that. So, with that being said, you would have never seen the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the 1968 bill of that same title, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, all these things that came about because of collaboration, effort, and a willingness to work together. And yes, it's frustrating that we have this government where healthcare is just now this thing we're just going to hold hostage for a couple of years. But you have to understand, those Republicans and those Democrats, the bulk of both of them, I don't want to say all, because you try to give them the benefit of the doubt, but a plurality do not care about you or anyone that's around you in whatever state you're in. And that's not to suggest that they're evil, but they all have what I would consider political interests. The game of politics is a very can be crooked at times. So, for example, you might have some Democrats who will say, oh, well, see, I'm sticking up for you because I'm not voting for this bill, and that bill is horrible. Well, yeah, but you're still not doing anything to ensure that whatever complaints you have about the bill actually get changed around or fixed up. Imagine if they had every single Democratic senator meet with those 6 Republicans and say, what do we both want from this? They have this closed meeting. It's about 60 senators in the room. They have them all write on a little piece of paper. What do you want? And that would, in my view, be an attempt at negotiating and realizing, yeah, we have to get this changed, or put out some version of this so that people aren't still screwed over in this bill that the president wants passed in the Senate. But they won't do that, and they won't do it because it's become cool to pretend to be the resistance. You had all these Democratic members of Congress decide to skip Trump's inauguration 5 months ago, and then even Hillary goes. And people were saying, "Oh, well, if she can go, well, I don't see why they can't go." It made perfect sense to me. They want to appear to be part of the resistance, to look cool for their constituents who will vote for them and put them back in office because that person sat up there and opposed every single thing this president that I can't stand did. And it's not entirely horrible to have disagreements and not want to vote for most of this stuff. I expect people on the further down the left, such as Warren or Sanders, to not back something that a number of conservatives would. But you have to keep in mind, most of those Democratic senators are bought out. You look at Tim Kaine, you look at Booker. They're not doing this for anyone's interest but themselves. It's just like back in January when Booker voted against the pharmaceutical bill that Bernie proposed, that Bernie even got Cruz and McCain to vote for. Guys on the right, left and right, came together to back this bill, and those 13 Democrats voted against it. And Booker was the one getting the most money from the pharmaceutical companies, taking in $200,000. And people, don't seem to really care, but about those minute instances of backlash. But you have to understand, that's done in the same spectrum as this, where the person might say that they really oppose this because they believe it's so contradicting of what they believe in, and all of that, wonderful rhetoric and those platitudes. But they're still not truly bothered by it, because they're not willing to try and do something to fix the problem, or do get around this issue that people are having trouble with. That's why the bill exists to begin with. If Obamacare was as great as people might think in some spectrums, then this wouldn't be happening, because Hillary running on planning to continue would have won the election. She didn't, and now you've got this president from the opposing party who is opposed to it. And it is what it is. But you have to understand, sitting here with your fingers and hands under your behind and not trying to change anything in relation to our policy is just going to further perpetuate the same system of struggles that a lot of these Democrats who claim to be for the middle class, well, they have, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and some people even have a pot to pee in, will, further in making themselves part of the problem. And, the solution is always, because I'm not trying to say, you must vote for this, because if you don't, you're an obstruction. No. You can be opposed to something, but at some point you have to realize, what are the consequences for this? And that's kind of what people don't seem to get when they vote for these representatives and senators and congressmen. And a good example of that would just be this scenario. Imagine, because I know him so well after that presidential election, imagine Kaine walks into his Senate office. He sits up in there. He is, just relaxing or whatever. And as he's doing that, he starts thinking about the various people that live in his state. And they start coming to his mind. And they just are swirling all over in his head. And when he's thinking about them, do you think he's thinking about, oh man, I have to make sure they get the proper health care. They voted for me. I have a responsibility to live up to them. No, he's thinking about, okay, well, I'm up for re-election next year in 2018, so let me make sure that, oh, well, what's today's date? Oh, it's the, all right, well, I'm not going to find out. Well, the stream will tell you anyway. I think it's the 26th, or the 20, whichever one. So he's saying to himself, well, I have a whole another year before I actually have to go and, do anything to actually appear beneficial to my state. So I'm just going to sit around here for all of 2017. It's the 26th, and not make any laws or pass any bills. And I know I feel as if I'm talking to a brick wall, partially because I know that given the title of this video, it won't generate a whole bunch of views. And I also know that given the content of this video, you won't get a whole bunch of people to watch it. You probably get 5 or 3 at the most. But really think to yourself, the next time you vote for any of these people for senator or representative, what are they running on? There was the guy that the African American man. I forgot his name. I think it's Jim Johnson. He was running for governor of New Jersey, and I said, "Oh, why?" As a fellow African American, he seems to be liberal and let me go look at his stuff. I start reading about his various positions, and it's like half of that site is I oppose what Trump did today because of Just get your own ideas. I don't want someone that's just going to get in there and just be Mr. Opposition. I want someone that's going to fix wherever I'm from. And I really hope people take on that mindset. I don't want someone who's just going to sit in office and be a roadblock for whoever I oppose. I want them to actually do something as well. I want if I say lived in, I'm not going to bring him up. I'm going to say Sanders. If I want Sanders to give me single-payer health care, or try to give it, which he has, to his credit and benefit, I'd probably pick the worst one to cite as an example of ineffectiveness and, not trying to do something. That would be ideal to what I'm talking about here, what I want, or what I would want in someone that's in office. And this healthcare thing, even though you'll have Democrats saying that they won't vote for it, I guarantee you'll have those such as Manchin, who I did a rant on yesterday because of what he said on Face the Nation that past morning about being partially willing to amend it. Are you kidding me? And that might have come from someone else and I would have had a lesser reaction, but that's my least favorite senator. So he is a good example of what I'm talking about here. The opposite, it's either clear steer opposition with no intention of having any type of say-so or compromise, or just, okay, I'm going to go with the flow, which is what the direction he appears to be going in. So I'm done for right now. I hope if you've seen this, you feel very much informed now of how I feel, and maybe you can take something away in knowing that you'll think twice about who you put in office and who you vote for. Because most of the representatives in my state, they've been here since before I was eligible to vote, and I know I wouldn't have voted for them even back then.